This morning's job, one of many, is to fit the nicely powder coated headlight bracket and hopefully the bowl as well. I've got a couple of new bolts because the ones that were in there were junk. I fitted the original rubber bungs that the speedometer cable mounts to. They've got a little bit of paint still on. I've tried to clean them off, but I don't want to go too mad because the rubbers themselves aren't in the best of conditions. Now I'm aware that there is paint and powder coat on these, so I don't want to scratch anything up. Oh, that's good. Should just slide on. Oop. There we go. We've got the two brand new bolts, which interestingly aren't bright silver, so they should be more hidden under there. Go on, in you get. There we go. There's those. And I've got two new nuts to go with it as well, because why not? So at least I know they're the right ones. The ones that came off here were just like, I don't know what they'd come off, a lawnmower or something, but they were definitely wrong. I'm just going to tighten those up. The next job is to fit the headlamp bowl, which sits in here, just like that. Now originally this was held in with two bolts, which I thought were original, but they're not. And I managed to source some second-hand reflectors that have cleaned up really nicely, and these actually form part of the bolts that secure the actual headlamp bowl. Okay, so the system for this is there's like a slider bolt that goes inside the headlamp housing, which is a tightish fit, followed by, I've taken the reflector off this is the mounting for the reflector. You've got a washer, and then this just fits, screws in there like so, and it clamps the headlight bowl in place. Okay, that is the headlamp bowl fitted. You can see the slider nuts inside, followed by the standoff nuts on the outside. I haven't over torqued them at the moment because the headlight will need adjusting once the bike's all back together, but it gives us a bolt to work with when we're fitting the electrics back in, as that's where they all seem to terminate. I'm also now going to fit the reflectors loosely. These will get thread locked in eventually at the end. I'm definitely going to need to go around the whole bike at some point at the end of the project and make sure that all these parts are fully tightened up, because if they're not fully tightened up we could have a disaster on our hands, bits falling off all over the place. So yeah, like for example, I know the front wheel is not torqued up and the back wheel needs doing, but hopefully I'll be wise enough to do a last minute inspection. So there we go, cosmetic, but they're on. I'm quite pleased with these. I found these the other day on eBay. They were £10 for the pair, and they're one of those little finishing parts that I think work quite nicely on it. Another job this morning, silly little job, but this is the clutch lever. I need to paint the handlebars black to match the rest of the bike, but I know that this has an issue. There's a bit of galling on the inside of the clutch lever which sort of prevents it from going on smoothly onto the handlebars, and that's just going to wreck the paintwork. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my Dremel tool, my Dremel knockoff tool, and just run it lightly around the inside just to remove some of the burring and see if we can get that to a better sliding fit than it currently is. It's a real force at the moment. I've taken off the sharp edge on the corner here, and I've taken off some of the burrs on the inside of this aftermarket clutch lever, and we now slide on with virtually no resistance at all. So I'm quite pleased with that. I have just been over the whole lot with 600 grade wet and dry, and the idea is to take the luster out of it. as chrome is a hard substance. I'm going to degrease it and then hit it with the adhesion primer prior to painting it a satin black, which should leave it with a nice finish, I hope. Or I've just ruined a nice pair of handlebars. It is time to fit the plate that holds the majority of the electrical connectors underneath the tank. This is where the coil hangs and associated connectors all come together. Because it's been powder coated, I want to make sure that there is electrical continuity between the coil and the rest of the frame. So I'm going to take a moment just to clear back some of the powder coating using the Dremel tool, and to run taps through all the screw threads. I ran the Dremel just on the inside of those holes to just relieve it of the powder coating. I'll over tighten. So the coil has a path to earth. He says, come on. There we go. So yeah, that is earthed to the frame. I've got 3 brand new squishy rubbers for the frame, and these hold one of the side covers on. Fabulous. That's another job ticked off. Right, check continuity on that. I have access to a piece of the coil rather than the actual nut itself, so that should tell me whether we've got the continuity we need. And it's not looking great. Oh wait, it's fine. Let's just scrape through the corrosion on the coil. It's time to tighten this top nut up, I should say. I've checked the manual and there's no torque setting for this specified as far as I can tell, so if anybody knows let me know, because I don't know. It's a 30mm socket, which is enormous. I had to order it specially for this job. So the only thing that fits it is my torque wrench, which isn't a problem. I just don't know how tight to go on it. I mean, how tight do you go on these things? Right, I was just cleaning this part ready to go back on the bike when one of the wires has pulled out of the back of the multi-connector. So one of the jobs this evening will be to see if I can reconnect that. It doesn't look like there's a lot left of the actual connector inside, so it may be a solder job. But those are the handlebars after one coat of adhesion primer, which is just a clear primer by Rust-Oleum, which I have to say went on really well, and then 2 coats of Rust-Oleum satin black heat-proof paint. But I do like the satin finish for some of the ancillaries. I know it doesn't match the frame, but I think it kind of adds a little something when some of the accessories are slightly different sheen to the rest of the bike. Okay, I won't go into the agonies of extracting that from the plastic multi-pin housing. I think they just stuffed the wires down behind the terminal there. So I've soldered wire onto what's left of the terminal, and I've removed the chock block and shortened the wire slightly, and soldered it and heat shrunk it. So hopefully that'll be a more permanent repair than the one that was there last time. And that is the repaired module once it's back in the block and clicked home into place. Now that I've repaired this, it's time to get it back on the bike. And it bolts back to back with the gammy black one. This one here. I've not repainted these. I don't want to mess with them too much. Tighten those up quickly. We're back with the wiring loom. Now this is just a dry run until it becomes the real thing. Let's see if everything just kind of fits into place. I seem to recall that all this just stuffs into the back of the headlight bulb. I don't think anything goes in through any of the other ports. That's the flasher relay back in, so we know where that goes. That's one. Now I don't know if these need to earth as well, it's difficult to say. Now I know the engine itself can earth through the lower part of the frame, which isn't an issue, but I'm supposing, or making a supposition, that it doesn't have to earth to the top, because these plates are all nicely powder coated and I don't want to start removing all the powder coating now. End of the day. Right, tighten that up. This is most definitely an aftermarket something or other, because it doesn't live there. I've had to put a flat washer as it came off behind here, so this I think is replacing one of these two, but it's, I don't know if anyone knows what it is and what it does. Can somebody let me know, because it confuses me, but it's definitely not supposed to be there. Now I did consider maybe jamming it up here between these two, but again it's a bit tight, so less than ideal. It may be at a later date I might be able to move it into this space here by jumping it out a bit further, but for the time being I'll leave it where it came out, and I'll keep an eye on it. I've achieved quite a lot today. I've been very lucky that I've been organised for once in my life, and things all seem to be coming together. Labelling is probably the most important thing I've taken away from this today. We have got a lot of the electrics installed now. I know it looks a bit of a mess at the moment. It is a bit of a mess at the moment, but it's all about cable routing. I am slightly changing the way it originally came apart for something that makes more sense. So at the moment this lot needs kind of a series of cables, cable ties to hold it in place, but it should be tucked up out of the way. This will find a better home once it's once the engine's in, because part of the engine cabling attaches here. Around the other side it looks a lot neater. We have got the various bits connected. Sorry, it's very dark. The covers have come over. Some of these are already connected in. This one, for example, these two are waiting for the engine to be installed before they can be clipped in. So this side's quite neat. The other side, as you can see, just needs a bit of tidying up, but that will come. That will come. And the rear end, I'm going to change the way the cables are routed this time. I want them to come down this side of the frame, away from the exhaust, with only the battery cable coming across to the battery. Everything else I want to stay on the left hand side of the bike. But we are getting closer and closer to installing the engine. I'd like the handlebars to be dry and on the bike before I do that. Yeah, I think hopefully by the end of the week the engine should be in, and we can start looking at getting the bash guards, getting the foot pegs on, installing the chains and the various mud guards and so on. Obviously it's never going to be finished until the painting of the tanks and the plastic's done, but they're not going anywhere for the time being. So anyway, yeah, so we are getting there bit by bit. Poor old engine sat there waiting to go back in the bike.